morning, folks. I am not the speaker, but I am going to speak. Jan and I share something in common, but it's thousands of miles away.
Norway.
On the western coast of Norway, where her family and our family lived. But we never knew one another because the fjord was in the way. Now it's a lot easier. The Norwegian side of our life, which you will hear about, is that which became a shaping influence in her life. And the one thing I would like to share with you about her is the book that she wrote with her mom. First, we have coffee. And that's how starts life and how starts our interaction with people. So Jan, first we have coffee, then you can pray. I'll pray. Gracious God, thank you for this day. Thank you for this season of the year. Thank you for waiting, and help us to wait patiently. Receive our thanks for Jan and for her life and for her ministry. And help us to be attentive this morning. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Well, when I think of all the things he could have said, I'm greatly relieved. You know, this hodgepodgey sheet that you've gotten, it's kind of like a Christmas card in a way from me to all of you, because it has some thoughts that I think about that I would have written to you in a card, but also a song, a Christmas song, and a couple of poems that I thought might matter to you. You know, Thanksgiving is past as a holiday, but thankfulness is a part of our DNA as a child of God, to be grateful. And so I want to just start off by saying, you have no clue how thankful I am for you. How thankful I am for this parish. How thankful I am for the Grays, for the Russells, for the Borgmans, for John, the doorkeeper of the house of the Lord, who sweeps and shovels and is often the first face that most of us see on Sunday morning. I'm so thankful for all of you, for being with me in times of sorrow, in times of joy, in times of the ordinary times of life. You have no idea how much I look forward to Sunday each week. You know, once you're no longer in that work week, Sunday is a day of demarcation. It's a very important day. It separates the Mondays, and it is something that I so look forward to. And I just wanted to thank you for that. I've loved our small group that we're a part of. Paul's in that group. Jim's in that group. The Hermans are in that group, though they're in Italy right now. And Patrick is our leader. And you know, in that we've been studying the good and the beautiful you, which is a little bit alarming to learn that there's a good and a beautiful you in there, which is wonderful at my age to finally catch on a little. But anyhow, in the group last week we were talking about calling, and it was also talking about this. We had to use verbs that were describing our lives, and you know what? I absolutely loved learning from Father Patrick that two of the working verbs that he liked were dancing and laughing. And I thought, I love having a priest that loves to dance. He was reminding us with his wife. But anyhow, I especially love that because you all know I grew up Baptist. And this is, unfortunately, I mean, when I start doing any kind of moves with my grandchildren, I'm doing something like this, they've named it the T-Rex. Anyhow, I have this tile that lets you know a little of my history. It says, I danced like no one was watching, but someone was watching. Thought I was having a seizure and called an ambulance. I have other ones, because I love that Patrick, one of the things Patrick loves to do is laugh. It says, I hate it when I think I'm buying organic vegetables, but when I get them home, they're just regular donuts. And the last one, and I swear Judge didn't give it to me. Sorry, I don't take orders. I barely take suggestions. We need to laugh. And this season of Advent, when we're bombarded with stuff, sucks out some of the most important parts of who we're to be and what this season is to be about. When I was thinking about you all, I thought about your generosity. I thought about your generosity in the capital campaign so that we become, as a parish, this more welcoming and, what's the other? Accessible, that's it. More welcoming and accessible. What a marvelous mandate. And thank you for all the pledging you've done. All those things that make this place more welcoming and more accessible to people who walk by, to people who live nearby, to people who pass by and sometimes wonder, I wonder if I could fit in a place like that. And that's why the heart of this is to make us a more welcoming place, a more accessible place. Sometimes, unfortunately, individually as Christians in this culture and as churches, we sometimes have hung out no vacancy signs. It's not just in the New Testament, not the innkeeper alone. We've had our ways of hanging out no vacancy, like we've got all we want in here. Your kind does not fit. We've made it too exclusive sometimes. We've made it too political sometimes. We've made it too tribal. And so when I hear that our whole focus is to become more welcoming and accessible, that is our hearts. It's not just ramps. That's our mindset. It's not just fixing all those blue stones that we can trip over. It's not just removing some walls out there to make us accessible from the streets. It's to be who we are, so people get to know why I say, I'm so thankful for you. I love you. I want other people to know that. Because at the heart of each of you is that you are deeply loved. We've been hearing you're beloved, that we're saints. Who'd have thought it? But that's what we've been learning in our small groups and from preaching from the pulpit. We are a blessed people, and we need to be doing this. In the stress of now, I thought, this year Thanksgiving got stuck right between Advent got stuck right between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. What a place to get stuck. And I feel like all of heaven is going like this to the crush of the world. When I was thinking about you all, I'd heard a song a few weeks ago, and I asked Betsy if she would sing it. And then maybe we can sing it at the end, but it's a little bit of a clue as to what's in you that makes a difference for out there. What's in us that makes a difference out there. It's called In This Very Room.
Very
so do you. That within you and within this room is plenty of love, plenty of joy, plenty of hope, and plenty of power. And no matter what they're hawking on Black Friday or Cyber Monday, this is what people long for. For love, for joy, for hope, for power to get up in the morning and do what they have to do. So what's the point of having all of that if we're not a welcoming and accessible place? And that's where our focus is, in heart and mind and how we work it out. We don't want no vacancy hanging off any place of this church or around our necks. Well, lest you think I'm just going to get on some soapbox and become sort of a little Grinchy person. Well, maybe I'll just leave that up to you to decide what I am by the end of all this. But anyhow, you know, I love that Grinch story. You know how it goes? All the Who's down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas. The whole Christmas season. Now, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be this head, that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. I love that story. You know it, you've seen it on TV, or you've read the book to your children or grandchildren. And you know that the Grinch, somewhere along the way by the end, after he'd taken all the presents and packages and all the food from their feast, he starts to think, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas perhaps means a little bit more. Well, a little bit more is what being welcoming and accessible is all about. So, now it's going to be your turn for a little bit. Because I was thinking, what are some of the gifts that you've given or received that didn't come from a store? Yes. Laughter. Hallelujah. Yep, laughter. What else?
Friendship.
What?
Friendship.
Love, friendship,
Acceptance.
other gifts you've given or received.
Hope.
Hope.
Being taught how to knit.
What?
Being taught how to knit.
Learning how to knit.
Being taught how to knit by my friend.
Being taught how to knit.
By my best friend. And I can
Oh.
go across the street every day when I make a mistake.
Oh, that brings back a bad memory for me. We were supposed to be making these prayer shawls. I had this group of women who prayed with me at Gordon, and we were supposed to make these prayer shawls. And Penny, God bless her, she and others tried so hard. They made a gazillion. I ended up with a coaster, and even that I didn't really use. Oh well, I'm glad somebody taught you how to knit. I can appreciate what others have done.
I still make a million mistakes.
All right. Knit and purl, so much for that.
I remember waking up one Christmas morning, it had snowed the night before, and a friend of mine had come sometime in the night and had walked a little script in the snow. He is born.
He what?
He is born.
Oh, wow. That's a gift. Other gifts.
Hospitality.
Hospitality. This church is wonderful at that. I gotta say, thank you. Other gifts you've given or received.
Trust in the Lord.
Trust in the Lord, yeah.
Music. Music.
Music. Music, for sure. Yes.
Giving of your
go on, but we're not gonna. All right. This year, so I was thinking about these gifts, and that's why I gave you that. And I made an acrostic to help me as much as you, so this doesn't look as hodgepodgey as it might feel. But there are gifts that have come to remind us from God and choices that we make that maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store, which we know better, don't we? The first thing I thought of was God's presence for peace, but also to help us with the pace. Isn't that one of the things that so works against the season of Advent in our culture? The pace picks up, but it's not in anticipation of Christ coming. It's on lesser stuff. And so I think the peace of Christ that dwells within us, and I had that section from Philippians. Somebody want to read that out loud? It's from the Message, and I love this. Judd used to read this one a lot, and I liked it. Under God's presence for peace and the pace of the season. Somebody read it. It's on your little sheet. It starts, don't. Read it aloud. Anybody?
I'll do it. Don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers. Letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, the sense of God's wholesomeness, everything coming together for good will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ has placed his worry at the center of your life.
Is true, isn't it? It's true. It doesn't always feel like anything is working for good or everything is working for good. But there is something about entrusting it to God. I was reading, it was Buechner who had said, God is sometimes to be known in this life-giving presence, but other times by his appalling absence. And sometimes we do sense that. And yet underneath that, entrusting the silence of God, entrusting things that look like they're going from bad to worse, entrusting it to God and taking it off of it, like was Dallas Willard. What was that quote, Patrick, that we liked? We don't have to make it happen. And sometimes we feel like we have to make it happen. And it adds the burdens and the worries. But the presence of God, his living presence, to help us with the pace of life and to have peace in the middle of the chaos that's going on around us. The I think, is a wonderful gift. I just spelled it with I to, fit into the acrostic. But encouragement, and that's what it is, really. Courage that comes into us is what gives us that encouragement. And it's encouragement to integrate what we hear on a Sunday with how we live it out on a Monday, which makes us welcoming and accessible to others around us, or it hangs out, no vacancy. We put our trust in troubled times and normal times. And to the frightened disciples, Jesus said, take courage. Help yourself. Take courage. Don't be afraid. Well, that sounds good, but it's not so easy. But encouragement, it's in you, it's in us, it's in this parish, beloved saints. We are the face and the hands of Jesus out there. There's a story that I love that's told by Tony Campolo, who's somebody I like a lot. And it goes like this. It's called Make Me Like Joe. Joe was a drunk who was miraculously converted at a Bowery mission in New York. Prior to his conversion, he had gained the reputation of being a dirty wino for whom there was no hope, only a miserable existence in the ghetto. But following his conversion to a new life with God, everything changed. Joe became the most caring person anybody associated with the mission had ever known. Joe spent his days and nights hanging out at the mission, doing whatever needed to be done. There was never anything he was asked to do that he considered beneath him, whether it was cleaning up vomit left by some sick alcoholic, scrubbing toilets, Joe did what was asked with a smile on his face and seeming gratitude for the chance to help. He could be counted on to feed feeble men who wandered off the street into the mission, to undress and tuck into bed men who were too out of it to take care of themselves. One evening, when the director of the mission was delivering his evening evangelistic message to the usual crowd of still and sullen men with drooped heads, there was one man who looked up, came down the aisle to the altar, and knelt to pray, crying out for God to help him change. The repentant drunk kept shouting, "God, make me like Joe, make me like Joe, make me like Joe." The director of the mission leaned over and said to him, "Son, I think you mean make me like Jesus." The man looked up at the rector with a quizzical look and said, "Is he like Joe?" I absolutely loved it. That's at the heart of having a vacancy sign. That's the heart of being a welcoming and an accessible community. That people say, "Oh, make me like Judy. Make me like Ezra. Make me like Jim. Make me like Doreen, Dibert." This is the heart of who we're to be out in the community. The F was faith, the facts, and the future. The scripture says it's impossible to please God apart from faith. And why? From the message says, because anyone who wants to approach God must believe both that he exists, that he cares enough to respond to those who seek him. Faith. I was thinking about, sometimes we think that faith is always believing every little thing that's preached, every little thing that's sung, every little verse. But I always like what Buechner said, that doubt is the ants in the pants of faith. The questions that we have, why this? Why not this? The ants in the pants of faith, and why is it so? He says, because it keeps us awake and moving. That's one of the things I love in our small group. Lisa will ask some great questions. Everybody does at one time or another in the group, but these questions that make us think again about something. Bert, your wonderful Sunday school class had us thinking so much. I thank you for that, for the heart, the mind that went into that great teaching for us. I think about Joanna Klein teaching us about the book of Ecclesiastes. I read something here that I wanted to share with you that came from Philip Yancey. And he was thinking that it's so amazing when he finally got himself to read through the whole New Testament, the whole Old Testament, how Ecclesiastes, its nearest neighbor is Proverbs. It says two more unlike books you could not imagine. And I speak of this all in the context of faith and doubt that we sometimes have. He says, you have Proverbs that seems to have everything figured out. Learn wisdom, exercise prudence, follow the rules, you'll live a long and prosperous life. Then Ecclesiastes butts in and says, I got life figured out and you need only follow this sage advice. Ha! Cynicism shows up. He says, the teacher in Ecclesiastes says, there's something else meaningless that occurs on earth. Righteous men who get what the wicked deserve, and the wicked men who get what the righteous deserve. This too, I say, is meaningless. But he talks about this disparity, and he says, it's kind of like a long symphony. It ranges through joyful and somber moods, each contributing to the impact of the whole. It reflects what we all experience. Sometimes the trials of Job and sometimes the serenity of Psalm 23, while living in a world that sometimes unfolds according to proverbial principles and sometimes yields the jarring contradictions of Ecclesiastes. And in the middle of it, we press on. Vacancy, come Lord Jesus. Wisdom, peace, patience, hope for the day. You know, I thought maybe right now we could sing a couple of verses of O Little Town of Bethlehem. Because, you know, when you talk about faith, you think, where's this woman going? She's hopping all over the place. Well, that's who I am. But anyhow, in O Little Town of Bethlehem, think of it back in the Old Testament. It's you go to the book of Ruth, and you talk about Advent, and they're waiting for it back then. And there's Ruth out in the barley field, picking up the dregs, not wondering what her life holds. And then she meets Boaz, who is the son of Rahab, you know, cha-cha-cha. So anyhow, then, I mean, who can't get into God's story? That's what's so wonderful. That's what the hope is. And so they marry, and they have a baby named Obed. And Obed grows up and has a baby named Jesse. And Jesse grows up and has a baby named David. Look how far that is between what we're reading in the Gospel of Luke. Look at that time. And we sing, "Come thou long expected Jesus." Well, we knew Jesus came then. And we know as we say that Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. And that's part of this holy expectation that we have at this time of year, but hopefully all through the year. Anyhow, I thought we could sing because I love it, the carol, but also it reminds us of how silently the gifts of God are given even today, whether it's hope, trust, joy. So could we sing? We'll sing first one for sure. Now let me see. Then we'll do, I think it was verse 1. All right, let's do verse 1 and do verse 2. Because that's a reminder about we have to have the vacancy sign. Okay, number 1. I spend a lot of my time saying I'm sorry. All right, number T is cultivate a thankful heart. To learn contentment. It's not something many of us are born with. We have to learn. And even the Apostle Paul says, I've learned to be content. It didn't just come on him. He had to learn to be content. You know, we have a tradition at Thanksgiving, talking about gifts that didn't come from a store. This is a basket. Gaynell, Judd's assistant, wove it, and I love it. It's such a reminder of her and how she helped keep things together there in so many ways. What a wonderful woman. Anyhow, what we do is at Thanksgiving, when we're together, before the meal, we have all these little strips of paper and pens out there, and people can write things that they're thankful for. And then we put them in the basket, and then afterwards, between dinner and dessert, we'll gather in the living room and we'll read these, and we don't say who did them, and we'll try to guess who wrote what. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're very serious and thoughtful, but I just brought 3 because from 3 years, a few of them. And they came because, you know, let's see, what's the first one? This was from 2012, then we had 2013, and then and 14. And these were when Judd and I were alone because he was in treatment. He says, I'm happy for a son who loves me and fishes with me. They could go out and do that. And Judd said, I'm thankful. This was right after we'd had all the really good reports coming back. I'm thankful for robust health and life that is exciting and varied. You get that with those initial treatments and things are going so well. Then we have 2013. I'm thankful for cancer because it gives me a new perspective on God and family and friends. I wrote, I'm thankful for how Judd has faced cancer with calm strength and a hopeful spirit, good humor. You've taught me much. Judd wrote, I'm thankful for 5 different sparkling grandchildren who love me and care deeply about me. He wrote, I'm thankful for children who are concerned, attentive, and caring. They love me. What more could a dad want? And then in 2014, Judd died just 4 days before that Thanksgiving. And Bert, you know how hard it is. Several of you do with those first, Cindy, with those first things that are happening. And this is to my granddaughter, Lily. I'm thankful for Lily, who bakes pies, cleans up, sleeps with her Momo, makes me laugh, and lets me cry. Another wrote, I'm thankful for Chad, oh, this is me, who suggested Caring Bridge, who loved and tended his dad so well, made him proud, helped me at home, cooking, cleaning, giving hugs and wise counsel, and reminding me there's more of Judd in him than just his middle name. And another wrote, the love that's all around us. And somebody else wrote, the ocean. Life goes on. And then somebody else wrote, so that you opened it, it said, I'm thankful for you. So whoever read it got that. But these are wonderful things to look back on and see how God was faithful at times when we could have just all given up. And at times it felt that way, but life went on. Anyhow, if you don't have a Thanksgiving basket, it's a wonderful thing to do, to look back and see God's faithfulness. I asked Betsy to sing a song. I'm going to tell you a story, which some of you may have wanted me to get at sooner. Betsy, you know, turn your eyes on Jesus. It's just in the reminder of learning contentment. It's an old song, but maybe just one verse of it. away from the commercials, away from the stuff. Learning to be thankful and content. Not always what could have been or what was, but what is, and what still may be, and what is sure to come. Part of a thankful heart. And then the S is to shine. I love that because you know how no vacancy signs often have lights around the warning. Oh, we need to be those shining. There's room. Come on in. Come on in to Christ Church. Coming into my home. Coming in. We'll put another seat at the table. Come on. It's a wonderful invitation for all of us to be able to shine. And it says in Philippians, you know, that in the darkness, we will shine like stars. That's for here. That's not after we've died and somebody says, oh, there she is up there. No, that's for here and now. And so I'm going to tell you a story that you've heard. It reminds me of the Garrison Keillor joke that I've told you before, where the old Norwegian has to come, and he finally agrees to come to the church and to read the scripture. He's an old bachelor. His parents have died, and he's just been vegging out at home all the time, you know, like pajama Sundays and sweatpants, you know, just home. And so he finally cleans up to come to the Christmas Eve service, and he's so nervous, and he gets there. Well, I'm going to be reading to you from Luke, the 2nd chapter. Stop me if you've heard it before. I love that one. We tell that over and over in the family. We Scandinavians are known for repeating ourselves. So you're going to get one of my favorite stories again. But don't stop me if you've heard it before. Okay, this is when my grandparents actually were in Canada. And there were missionaries there, and my mama was the eldest of 7 children. And she's the one who wrote First We Have Coffee. I cheered her on and helped her get it published, but she did the work. And she lived the stories. And this is her story. So come with me. Well, I just loved living in Canada. It was a wonderful place. I mean, Papa was a preacher, so we didn't have a lot of money, but we weren't poor, because every night we prayed for the poor people at dinner, so it wasn't us. Well, I tell you what I loved so much. I loved Christmas. And you know, we didn't have much, but Mama would always say, God will provide. Well, didn't always like the way God provided. I had other ideas. But Mama seemed to be perfectly happy with how God provided. Well, what happened was this. I just have to tell you this one Christmas story. We were living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and we had a little house there, and well, what happened? Papa would go on missionary journeys. He would go out into the big woods, they called it, where there were lots of immigrants that had come over that were working in the lumber areas. And Papa would go and tell them about Jesus. And he would help them because they had many sorrows. They missed their families. And they were back in Norway where they had come to try to make a new life here. And I thought about this, you know, they all had handkerchiefs. And Papa had lots of handkerchiefs, and he had to bring them along because they weren't just for their tears, they were his tears too sometimes. But you know, but what happened? Papa would go, and people would pay Papa with moose meat and elk meat and potatoes and things from their gardens. And sometimes little money would come from the headquarters, but not so much. But then he would expect Mama to manage just fine. And Mama found ways to manage just fine. Well, he had been gone now for a while, and we were getting low on a lot of things, and it was Christmas, and you know, what was happening was we were used to having oatmeal in the morning for breakfast. But then we started having it at lunch. And before too long, it was morning, noon, and night we were having oatmeal. Now, I didn't mind it in the morning, but I had other thoughts for lunch and for dinner. But Mama always taught us we were to have thankful hearts, so we weren't going to be grumping and complaining that we didn't have something fancy for dinner. And so one day I said to Mama, I was the eldest of the 7 children, and I said to Mama, Mama, it's almost Christmas, and I'm used to smelling wonderful things in the house, and all I smell is oatmeal. She said, oh yeah, Margaret, we will change that this afternoon. I thought, happy day, something's coming. And so what happened that afternoon, when Grace, the next in line, was watching the others while they were taking their naps, Mama got a sled and off we went to cut down a Christmas tree. So we come back with a Christmas tree, and sure enough, now we smell oatmeal and pine. And so then we start making the decorations to decorate the tree with paper, with berries and things like that. I was ready to sprinkle it with oatmeal, but oh, Mama wouldn't have thought that was such a good idea. It could be snowing oatmeal all over that tree. No, we don't waste nothing. God is our provider. And so what happened then was, I said, oh, Mama, thank you for getting the tree, and now we get to do this. But it's still oatmeal. Nothing has changed there. And I said to her one day, I said, we got the tree, Mama, but there's no presents under the tree. And she said, oh yeah, we don't need presents. Then we have the presence of Jesus. I thought, oh, that's easy for her to say. I would like to see some presents under the tree. Well, what happened, we kept doing that. When I complained about just the smell of oatmeal and just the smell of the pine, Mama said, oh, Margaret, this we get to do today. We get to clean. Oh, yeah, we get to clean. Woohoo! And so there comes the Fells Naphtha soap. So now we got the smell of the oatmeal, the pine, and the soap. This is Mama thinking we're making everything so festive. So we cleaned and we scrubbed. And it's Christmas Eve day now. Christmas Eve is when we celebrated as Scandinavians. That's when we had the presents and the big feast. And so on Christmas Eve day, still no sign of Papa. But what Mama did, she says, help me, Margaret, and we haul in the big metal tub into the kitchen. She'd been boiling the water, and we pour water into there until it's just the right temperature, and so we're going to get all cleaned up for Christmas Eve. I thought, why? But then there we go, and the baby gets the first bath, then the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. It's finally my turn, and I'm looking at that and thinking, what's the point? And Mama says, Margaret, I have a surprise. I said, what? She says, help me dump the water. We dumped the water outside, and then she make a whole clean bath for me. Now that was no small thing, to haul that out and to bring that in. And so I had the smell of this clean water with the soap. And then we had clean clothes to put on that Mama had washed and starched and ironed. And oh, there we were, all of us girls and one poor brother. But there he was, all cleaned up too. And then Mama said, now, Margaret, I want you to set the table in our best. So I got out the beautiful tablecloth that Mama had embroidered. I put out the best china and got it all set up with the plates and the silverware and the napkins Mama had embroidered with our names on them. It was all set out so beautifully. And then Mama looked at the table and she says, now, Margaret, darling, I would like you to add a bowl into the middle of each plate. Oh, I knew what was going into that bowl. As all I'd been smelling all day was the oatmeal bubbling away. And so I plunked the bowl down in the middle of each of the plates. And Mama gave me one of those looks like you might want to check your attitude a little bit before you come to the table. And so finally the time came. We came and we gathered around the table. And we held hands. Mama was by the baby, holding the baby's hand, and I was holding on the other side. And Mama said, we're going to thank Jesus. I thought, this won't take long. And so Mama began to pray, and I kept my eyes open to see how thankful she looked. She said, oh, Jesus, thank you. Look at this. Look at this healthy family around this table. They have heat. They have candles. We have a tree. Best of all, we have you. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Be with Papa. And just then, I heard all this noise, not reindeer on the roof, but I heard lots of feet on the porch stomping. And I heard singing, joy to the world, the Lord is come. I thought, well, this is a good time. And so I ran to the door to open it up, and there were all these people. They were there with boxes and packages, singing away. And finally the minister stepped forth from the Baptist church, and he said, welcome to Saskatoon. We knew this was your first Christmas here, and that your Papa is on a missionary journey. So we thought there might be something you needed or would like. I thought, oh, if only they knew. And I could smell all the things, and they began to give us these packages. And I said, come in, come in, come in. Oh, there was not going to be no vacancy hanging on our door. And they come in, and there were meatballs and mashed potatoes. There was lingonberries. There was homemade bread. There was cheese. There were all these things. There were hard candies. There were cookies. There were all kinds of wonderful things. And then there were packages wrapped that they put under the tree. And I just couldn't get over it. Where did all this come from? They said, you know, we're so happy you're here. And we wanted you to feel a special welcome to our church. And so we brought you these things. We hope you feel welcome. And then the pastor said, we hope you'll come to our house on Sunday for Sunday dinner. Nobody invited us to their house. There were 7 children. They invited us. And it was something to think they were going to have us come to their table too. They just didn't bring stuff here. They were going to have us come there as well. A welcoming church, accessible to a family with 7 children. What kind of a place must that be? So they left, and then I noticed something I hadn't before. Mama had dishes on the sideboard, serving dishes. And so the meatballs went into that, the potatoes into that, the lingonberries into that. Each of the things, there seemed to be a place as if she knew something, or maybe hoped. And then she said something that was probably the best gift of all. Margaret, would you remove the bowls from the table? Oh, I was so happy to go around and collect those bowls, stick them into the kitchen, and then we brought out this feast that was all before us. And then Mama said, children, come back. We were in the middle of thanking God when the people showed up. And isn't that how it is? In the middle of a muddle, God can show up with something we could never have imagined. With love, with joy, with hope, with power. And so Mama continued, and I tell you, she looked no more thankful then than she was before. And so she finished the prayer. And at the end, Papa come. And Papa come in stomping. He was this big old Norwegian. His coat, he was covered like the abominable snowman. He took off his wraps and everything and hung it up and stopped. Hugged Mama with his big, cold, ruddy cheeks. And he said, oh, I'm so thankful to be here. We got stuck in a blizzard for days. You can't believe it. For several days we lived on oatmeal, morning, noon, and night. And we said, and then we had our feast. Afterwards, when I was in the kitchen with Mama, I said, Mama, how you do that? How you look so thankful before, the same thankful after. You didn't know what was going to happen in between your prayers? She says, yeah, Margaret, this could just be one of life's valuable lessons. Set your heart before you set the table. That no matter what, you will be thankful. Set your heart before you set the table. That you will be thankful no matter what. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. We are called to be gifts, to be a welcoming, accessible people. And I am so thankful. That's how I see you. I wish you all a good Yule. And then I was thinking, maybe we could sing a song. The song is at the back, and it's one that for years Judd and I had, we had this wonderful, at Gordon, this wonderful Christmas party with faculty and staff. And this was the last thing we would sing at the end of the programs after a feast. We would have stories and songs and all kinds of things, but then we would end up with this song. And I love it. It's sung to the tune of Oh Danny Boy. And will you sing it with me? Betsy, want to come up here? It'd be easier for them to hear. I cannot tell why evil angels worship should set his love upon the sons of men. Oh, by a shepherds he should seek the wanderers to bring them back. They know not how or when. But this I know, that he was born of Mary. When Bethlehem's manger was his only home, and that he lived as Nazareth and labored, and so the Savior of the world is come. I cannot tell how silently he suffered, as with his feast he graced this place of tears, or how his heart upon the cross was broken. The vow made to 33 years. your gifts that's in you and comes through you is God's presence, God's encouragement, your faith, your thankful heart, and you will shine like stars. Because in this very room, what is there? My high tech. There's plenty of love for one like you and our whole area. There's plenty of joy, there's plenty of hope, and there's plenty of power. Take it in, give it out, vacancy, always, to welcome, be a welcoming and accessible person and place. Because Jesus came, and Jesus is in this very room and in you. Amen.